What's up, everybody? It's pouring down rain outside. This is the perfect time for me to talk about the flooding issue. This is one of the things we have to get fixed long term. I'm going to show some video clips here throughout, basically showing you guys what it looks like every time it rains like this. And at the end of the video, I'll record another clip probably after it stops raining, kind of talking about what our long-term solutions are for things. But this is like the introduction. So from here, I'm going to show you a couple of videos about what it looks like when it really comes down. This is for the purpose of documentation, because the drainage here is a big issue, if you can even hear me talking. So when it rains, I took all these blocks that used to be around the chicken coop area and I moved them here, and we've got this little thing and it funnels all the rainwater here and it goes over there and it drains down the side of the house. And there's like a 18-inch gap there between our house and the wall next to us. And there's supposed to be a drain hole over there in the wall by the church, but there's not. So as a result, there's no drainage over that direction, so it all comes here. Now when we moved in, that was blocked off, and the first time it rained, this all came up to within like a ½ inch of coming over these curbs and into the house and flooding our entire house. This is what happens every time it rains. But at least now it drains out the side there. But this is a big issue we're going to have to fix that. We've got floating sandals. Actually, I need to get those before they disappear. It looks like one of Christina's chickens got out. Hiding over there. Good times. So this is what it does when it rains. All that water comes pouring down from that back forest area, comes right down through our yard, and drains all the way here, and goes over there, down the side of the house. Problem is, if that ever gets tapped up, which it looks like it is right now, this starts building up, and if it ever gets over the curb, it'll flood the house. So it looks like I get to go check out what's clogging it up right now. That's the one major issue here with drainage. What's up, everybody? Time for the end of the video. I got Luke and Leia, and apparently somebody else. Looks like Smeagol's in here on the bed. We got the cat sheets on the bed right now. So let's talk about the videos we just watched. The first clip was Chris and I yesterday, last night actually, and then the previous two clips are recorded at a different session a few weeks ago. It's basically been doing that. What's up, Smeagol? Since the rain started in June. Now, here's the fun thing. The reason it was getting stopped up on the side of the house is because when these two showed up as kittens, we didn't want them escaping because they were feral when they arrived, and so we were trying to keep them on lockdown. So we put chicken wire, like a little chicken wire gate. And what happened the first night, we didn't know that it was going to do this. So the very first time it rained here, that passage, which you've seen in some of the previous videos, it's on the side of our house. It's on the side behind my office window right here. There's about maybe it's not very wide. I haven't actually measured it, maybe 12 inches wide. That runs all the way down between our wall of this house and the wall of the property next door. And that's it. That's where all of the water drains. Now, we put that chicken wire thing up to keep these two cats from escaping when they were kittens. And so I remember it was I don't remember when it was. It was June, and early June, and I was streaming on a Friday night, and Chris came running in here at like 8:30 and was like, "Tim, I need help. We have an emergency." And I go outside, and the water was literally within a ½ inch of the curb top, ready to spill over into our house and run all the way through on its way out to the street on the front side of the house. And so we very quickly like, "Oh crap, what's going on?" And then it was like, "Oh, that chicken wire gate that we had put up had just all of the leaves and debris and everything coming through the yard, had ran up against that chicken wire gate and had gotten trapped. And then it had just started to build up. As soon as we opened up that chicken wire gate and everything went through there, then all the water drained out. Now it's still, as you've seen in the videos, anytime it rains, if it rains heavy like it did last night, even when that gate is open, that water still builds up to about 6 inches deep. And gets within about 2 to 3 inches of coming over the curb. To date, it hasn't rained hard enough for it to ever overflow, but it could eventually. You never know. So the issue is that the only place the water has to go right now is down the side of our house right here. And so what everything does is because we're at the bottom of the hill, the water just runs all the way down the hill into our property and then hits our house. Now, in a perfect world, it would go around either side of the house. On the left side of the house, the church has a retaining wall. They didn't put any drainage holes in the retaining wall because they want their property to be pristine. So when the water hits that retaining wall, it just runs down the retaining wall to our house and then along the front of our house until it gets to this wall out here to escape. So it can't escape on the other side of the house. It can only run on this side of the house. So there are no easy solutions here because, for example, Chris would like to, hey, Smeagol, I may have to deal with a cat here. Smeagol, come here, buddy. You're being hyper. I don't want you to pull the map down. Oh, hang on. No. Okay, I got that taken care of. Hyper little kids. Um, you all right, Luke? Did they disturb your nap? Oh, great king. Anyway, Chris would like to build a retaining wall on the back side of the property so that all the water draining down hits the retaining wall and can't come into our property. But the problem is putting a wall up on the back side of the property doesn't actually solve anything because it'll still run down the side of the wall until it gets to the neighbor's property, and then it'll come through the neighbor's property. None of the neighbors have walls built up, so then it'll just go around the retaining wall and come back in. So if you look at like where the chicken coop is, there are 3 properties to the right of our backyard. None of them have walls. So all a retaining wall on the back wall, all a retaining wall on the back side of the property would do would be to just push it all to the side to the neighbor's property, where it would then run off and then come back into our property. So the only long-term solution to this is to build like the church did, would be to put like a 8 foot wall, 8 foot high wall around the entire property. The downside to doing that is that we would lose the backyard. Like right now, our backyard, there's just a chain link fence into the woods. So we get a nice breeze from there. The cats can go exploring and all that other stuff. Um, since our property is block, the water's not essentially going to damage the house. I've checked around the perimeter. It's been here 20 years and it hasn't ever eroded underneath the property because it's on a concrete slab. So essentially when it hits this wall, it's running down on top of concrete slab. So it really can't do anything to the, I mean, long-term concrete can theoretically damage, excuse me, water can theoretically damage concrete, but it shouldn't. And I haven't seen any water damage to date. It's just the outside of the house is dirty, as you've seen, because the mud and the speckle and spackle and everything else has accumulated over the years and it all needs to be cleaned. Now, back here in the garage area, there definitely is erosion underneath a little bit, like about 3 inches up underneath the slab. It has definitely eroded over 20 years of time. And not all of that is because of the drainage. It's also because on the roof, we have drain pipes that stick out, and there's a drain pipe that sticks out, and it's been pouring for 20 years in the same spot. There's no guttering here, so it's just this 6-inch drain pipe that shoots out over the eaves of the house and just dumps water. So the drainage issue is a big one. Long term, the only good solution is to completely enclose the property so that we don't get all the runoff from the backwoods because we are at the bottom of this hill. So it just runs down to us and then it hits the street. So it's all well and good to say that that's a long-term solution to build a wall, but the con of that is being we then lose that back property, the woods and everything, and the nice breeze that we get from there on hot summer days, and the cats being able to go play and everything else. So there's pros and cons to everything. Um, the other thing is that, and this is just a theoretical. Chris has already made some
conversations have been made about potentially buying the woods back there from because the people who own that are the same people who originally owned. It's the same family who owned this property back in the day. They own everything around here, and they're all getting old, and they've been selling off plots here and there, and then that's essentially like 3 plots of land. And so Chris has said, well, wouldn't it be nice if we could buy all 3 of those? And it's like, well, that's a nice thought. So if YouTube keeps going well, that might be a possibility next year. Like, subscribe, all those good things, by the way. Um, So we don't have there's no short-term solution for the drainage. There is none. It just is that every time it rains, we have to make sure that that chicken wire gate is open, which right now we've pretty much been leaving it open because these guys are big enough, it doesn't matter. The other 5 that we have now, because Mama Cat was pregnant and everything else, they're 4 months old. It doesn't really matter anymore for them. So we're just leaving that open like 90% of the time now. The only time I could see it becoming an issue is if we left for a few weeks to go on vacation or something, and something major were to happen, and for some reason we got a whole bunch of blockage that just hit that side of the house and just blocked that corridor completely. Which, I mean, it would take an emergency level event for that to happen, like a tree falling down or something. But I mean, theoretically, it could happen. Otherwise, we shouldn't get any flooding in our house. And the nice thing about the whole house being concrete is that even if it did flood, it would be a mess, but it wouldn't be a disaster because it's all concrete slab. So the water would just literally run through our house, out the street, and we would have a huge mess to clean up and floors to mop and everything else, but it wouldn't really ruin anything because we don't have wood or carpet or anything like that. Um, so yeah, that is one of the things that we didn't know about before we bought this place, and we didn't find out about until the first rain hit in June. And then every time it's poured down rain, we've had to deal with that. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. If I mean, somebody mentioned like, oh, you put French drains in. It's like, well, yes, but that still doesn't solve the solution. Like putting a French drain in, I don't need to. Like the water drains down the side of the house, fine. The issue is how do we keep all that runoff coming down the hill from entering our property? Because if we just had normal runoff just from our backyard, it would be a mess and we would still have some drainage issues, but we wouldn't have the flooding like almost coming over into our house every time it rains, because that's the issue we have right now is we're getting all the runoff from that entire hill section because we're at this, it just comes down towards our property, and because the church has retaining walls, we get all of it and it collects in our backyard, and the only place it has to go is down our house. And the other con, by the way, which I haven't mentioned, is that if we did build a wall around our entire back property, we would really piss off the neighbors because then we would essentially be flooding all of the neighbors' properties. And there's something to be said about, well, that's their problem, not my problem. Is That's one of the conversations we've had. But we're trying to analyze all the pros and cons and say what's the best solution, and we don't really have one yet. It's just kind of like we're dealing with it now, and honestly, the best solution we've come up with so far is just build a retaining wall and deal with the neighbors being pissed off, because that's kind of the only solution we have to try to keep our property from turning into a flood every time it rains. Because it's not fun, and I can't do anything in the backyard every time it says it because it turns it into a muddy mess. And also, it's very hard for the grass to grow because it turns it into just packed dirt because the water's coming through all the time, and it just packs everything down, and we get just mud flats in the back, which was why it was just a complete desolate, mud packed, barren wasteland when we moved in. So this is one of the cons to the property. Not a big con, but it is an issue. It's not a life-threatening issue. It's not a house is going to blow up, house is going to run away, house is going to fall apart type of issue. But it is an issue that, if left unchecked over time, it could continue to damage things. I mean, 20 years, it hasn't really done a lot of damage, but it could get worse. We would like to avoid it getting worse. Anyway, drop your thoughts down in the comments below. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Stay tuned for the next episode, which will be coming next week sometime. Peace.